A good Erev Shabbos to you. I hope you're all well. Firstly, Mazel Tov this week. Mazel Tov to Joe and Dan Gross on the occasion of Avi's Bar Mitzvah. To Zoe and Joseph Cork on Ethan's Bar Mitzvah. To Cynthia and Norman Roberts on the occasion of the Bar Mitzvah of their grandson Amichai Gray in Ranana. Mazel Tov to Kendall and David Eda on the birth of their son. To Jeremy and Carly Goldstein on the birth of their daughter. And Sarah and Richard Morris on the birth of their daughter Isabel. Mazel Tov also to Michelle and Anthony Field on their 20th wedding anniversary. To Jill and Eddie Cohen on their upcoming 50th wedding anniversary. And to Stephen Gilbert on his 70th birthday. And to anyone else who's celebrating a birthday, anniversary, or any other simcha, we wish you Mazel Tov. We wish Refuah Shlema, a full and speedy recovery to anyone who is unwell, and Ruach Yamim, long life to anyone who has a yortzeit in the coming week. Friends, let's face it, Judaism and Jewish life is synonymous with food. And that's not just because kashrus rules determine what we can eat, but because every significant moment is almost defined by the food. From the weekly chicken soup and chulent to the yearly festive foods of latkes and donuts, the honey cake and the cheesecake, and not to mention the kiddushim that we're missing so much, and the receptions and dinners at simchas. And so it comes as no surprise that a major source of complaint for the Jewish people in the desert was the food. They didn't complain about the heat in the day or the cold in the night, but they complained about the catering. And they asked, Mi ya'achlenu basar? Who will feed us meat? Now, according to Rashi, based on the Midrash, there was no shortage of meat. This was just a pretext to complain about the manna. Why? Because they were bored with it. And then they started reminiscing about the good old days in Egypt, and specifically, Zachanu es hadagar she'nochal b'Mitzrayim mechinam. They said, we remember the fish that we used to eat for free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But you have to ask, why did they single out these particular foods? Rabbeinu Bachai explains that people wanted to disparage the manna, and so they compared it unfavorably to food that's universally considered as inferior to it, such as cucumbers and melons. But their behavior just doesn't make sense. How could anything compare to the manna? It was, as we know, the original superfood. Not only was it divinely given, but it tasted divine as well. Whatever a person wanted it to taste of, it would grace any Kiddush table. And so what's at the root of the people's complaint? How do we understand this episode and its eternal significance to us? We know there's a well-known story, but it's a powerful one, of a professor who entered his classroom one day and asked his students to prepare for a surprise test. And then he handed out the exams with the text facing down. And once he'd handed them out, he asked the students to turn over the papers. And to everyone's surprise, there were no questions, just a black dot in the middle of the page. The professor, seeing the expressions on everyone's faces, told them, I want you to write what you see there. And the students, confused, got started on the inexplicable task. At the end of the class, the professor took all the exams and started reading each one of them out loud in front of all the students. All of them, without exception, defined the black dot, trying to explain its position in the center of the sheet. After all had been read out, the classroom silent, the professor started to explain. He said to them, I'm not going to mark you on this. I just want to give you something to think about. You see, no one wrote about the white part of the paper. Everyone focused on the black dot. And the same thing happens in our lives. We insist on focusing on the black dot, the health issues that bother us, the lack of money, the complicated relationship with family, the disappointment with a friend. The dark spots are very small when compared to everything that we have in our lives, but they're the ones that fill our minds. But we have to defocus our eyes from the black spots in our lives. Enjoy each one of our blessings, each moment that life gives us. And the Rambam wrote in his Guide to Perplexity the same thing. He said that people often think that the evils in the world are more numerous than the good things. And many sayings and songs of the nations dwell on this. They say that a good thing is found only exceptionally, while evil things are numerous and lasting. And he said not only common people make this mistake, but even many who believe that they are wise. And he references the work of Al-Razi and says that it contains the foolish idea that there exists more evil than good. For if a person's happiness and pleasure in times of prosperity are compared with the mishaps that befall them, such as grief, acute pain, defects, paralysis of the limbs, fears, anxieties and troubles, it would seem as if their existence is a punishment and a great evil. But, says the Rambam, the correct view has to be of the good bestowed by God and his evident kindness. And we have to consider it in the context of the whole universe, and only then will we find the truth. And that is why the Torah is recording for our benefit the mistake that the people made in the desert. They vocalized their disgust at what was the most valuable gift from God, not so much wanting something specific as just expressing their dissatisfaction with what they had. And sadly, that's part of the human condition, because we're all predisposed to emphasize what we're missing rather than pay attention to and truly value what we currently possess. Have you ever been somewhere where there's been a faint music playing in the background, or the sound of drilling on an alarm that's constantly ringing? Because there's a strange phenomenon. You see, we hear background noise when it starts, but adapt to it quickly because our brain thinks that it's not worth the attention. We allow it to register and then quickly forget about it because we conclude that there are other more important or interesting things to listen to. It's only when the background noise stops that we notice it and realize it. And that's because there's an audio flaw, which is at a level that's not intrusive or disturbing. It's just there. And it's the same with many of the constants in our life. All the good things that we have, our health, our family, our freedom, they become like a faint background noise, and we hardly notice them. But the tragedy is that we tend to only truly recognize them when we're in danger of losing them, or we've already lost them. This episode reminds us that we should always focus our thoughts on what we have and fully appreciate it as if it was literally manna from heaven. Friends, if it helps, then keep in mind this question. What if you woke up tomorrow only to what you thank God for today? Good Shabbos.